Hi, beautiful beings. Let's discuss the place of your deep triggers. These spaces occur in your life where the external environment calls on you so distinctly and so intensely and so rapidly that it triggers you into a very, very, very familiar addictive response. So say, for example, you have some deep issues with your mother-in-law. As soon as you see her number flash up on your phone, you feel your whole body ricochet into an addictive response. And that addictive response is connected into the nervous system. So you begin to shift your breathing, you begin to shift your body temperature, you begin to shift your digestion, you begin to shift your whole being, and it trips you into this stress response. The whole of you is being called into a pattern that was laid down as a child. So even though it's the mother-in-law right now, that stress response was firstly initiated when you began to find your way in the 3D world and began to learn that certain experiences feel uncomfortable. And in time, that experience that felt uncomfortable when it was repeated would form a whole lot of neural pathways and a whole lot of emotional and nervous system responses around that feeling. They become so deeply embedded in your body that just the sight of your mother-in-law's number is enough to trigger off that really old patterning system. And there's a level of addiction that's related to that because we want to feel what's familiar. We want to feel the power of our bodies to respond to the triggers in those ways. So it's like permission slip. It's like, oh, there's my mother-in-law. It's my turn to jump into what I know from my childhood that is deeply ingrained in my body and to allow the addiction to run through my body. So we are addicted to emotional responses. And in many ways, these are harder addictions than physical addictions to, substances or activities like shopping, sex, food. That's something external that we can actually see, that we actually consume. But when it's a thought form that comes from just simply seeing something, that level of addiction is really harder to place. So we need to firstly get really clear on where the addiction is being triggered. Oh, it's my stepmom. She triggers me into an addictive pattern. I can see that. So the most critical thing is creating space. If we are conscious, then we allow time effectively to slow down. And when time slows down, we have more options available to us. More pathways become clear because we're not being tripped into the automatic pathway that just lights up in front of us because we've trodden it so many times over our lifetime. Instead, we're looking then in that moment to say, wow, here I am. I'm feeling a physical sensation through my body. It's bringing up some really deep automatic sensation. And I'm going to create a moment of space before I respond or react. Now, that moment of space is going to be linked into your capacity to stretch the nervous system. Because the nervous system just wants to tripwire into the addiction. It just wants to fall into it and run its really well-known path. But if you want to create just a gap, just a tiny gap, and I want to invite you in that gap to sit in the discomfort before the addiction takes hold. So to sit in the space where you are feeling such an urge to have an emotional response to that event, but you're not allowing yourself to go there. You're holding yourself in the awareness of the discomfort. So when you stretch into the awareness of the discomfort before the addiction takes a full hold, you're creating space and tolerance for the discomfort, for your nervous system to see it's safe not to go into the addictive response. So the longer you can hold yourself in the discomfort without acting out and trying to find relief through the addictive response, the longer you can sit in it, the more chance you have of stretching out time, stretching the nervous system into a sense of awareness that in that moment there's actually truly nothing to be afraid of, but you're bringing a greater awareness into the space. Then you have options. Once you stretch the nervous system, you can begin to ask yourself some cognitive questions that bring you into consciousness. And the work of Byron Katie is so powerful for this. She asks the question, is this true? Is this really true? Is it really true that my mother-in-law is a threat to my safety? No. It's not really true. It's an illusion that I've created in a thought form around my mother-in-law to allow me to go on this path of feeling my addictive responses to stress. So then, am I really under threat? Am I really in a space where my well-being is really being threatened? And if the answer is truly no, which it is in the majority of cases in our modern lives, then you have a space to grow into something new. Resisting the urge to fall into your nervous system. And the cognition of asking yourself, is this true? Is simply creating space and a gap to allow an alternate perception and an alternate path to begin to be wired outside the traditional one, which is, of course, my stepmother is a huge threat to my well-being. She's enormous. Is it true? Stretching the nervous system into a new way of relating. So then in the trigger, we can bring an emotional flavor that after we've got the thought under control, after we've allowed the nervous system some space, we can begin to really cultivate the potential of loving, even on the smallest minuscule level, a moment of this human experience. Loving the fact that we care so deeply that we're having this response to our environment. Loving the fact that we are human enough to feel these feelings at a base level. Loving our conscious awareness that we know we want to change it. Loving the fact that we are an interconnected piece of a bigger puzzle where we're feeling something that if we allow it to fully go through our bodies and fully transmute, we're creating a healing pathway for ourselves and other people. Feeling any level of love for yourself, that you're taking space to not repeat what you've always done. Loving that there may be a potential out there where you'll discover a whole new reality from taking this space. Loving the fact that in not repeating everything always, we have the potential to create anything all the time. We have the potential to create something completely vibrantly new. So any level of those feelings about loving what is arising, in the words of the divine Matt Kahn, loving what is arising in that moment, loving who you are to do the work, loving how hard it is to break from addiction that was formed as a child to keep you safe, loving the child in you that is really not willing to keep going down this path because it doesn't provide anything fresh and new and life-giving. Loving the adult part of you that's willing to hold the child through the pain and not going through the addiction. Like a loving parent that wasn't there saying, listen, I've got you, I'm holding you. You're just showing a new pathway. It's okay, it feels scary because it's the unknown. You don't know what it is like to not react like this. You don't know what it's going to feel like on the other side if you don't have this habitual reaction because you've never had it. So I love the fact that you're willing to give it a shot. And I'm going to sit with you over and over and over in that space of triggering into the addiction to support you because I'm here for you. And I'm loving you in your humanness, in the challenge of this. I'm here loving you in this. So allowing that space of the heart to come through. Awareness of the nervous system, awareness of the thoughts, awareness of the heart. And just in that, you've already changed the field of your potentials. You've already made a wedge in what was always destined before that time to happen. Your consciousness is literally pulling you forward into a new way of relating and being. So go gently. See the trigger. Stretch the nervous system beyond the trigger. Question the thoughts around the trigger. Love yourself through the trigger. And let it be. And if you slip into the full-blown addiction and you're completely off into that whole illusion space of pain and fear, love yourself in it. It's okay to feel the addiction of the trigger. And sometimes simply that is enough to release you from it. Sometimes stopping giving yourself such a hard time that you're back where you are and you don't want to be there is enough to set you free. This is big work. This is huge work. This is liberation on so many levels. So hold yourself gently in it and love yourself fully in what you are attempting to do, beyond any story of you being unlovable or unworthy or not good enough. Just simply sitting here and hearing this, because it resonates with you, shows you already know what to do. I'm just a mirror to your being. So go and know that you know what you're doing. Have faith in you. Sending so much love. Be well and know you're not alone.